Okay, so today we're going to do a little talk about a new vehicle that'll be coming to market in the next year or two, called the Ineos Grenadier. So this will be an interesting product, Land Rover-ish, we'll say. So Grenadier is a new vehicle, and it just became kind of interesting this week because they released the interior photos. So we're going to talk about that, and then a little bit at the end about what it is. So you can see in these interior photos, they've gone kind of full aviation spec on this thing. So it has proper aviation or marine type switches. It looks very professional looking. Looks like a high end DJ stereo equipment type stuff. That part's interesting there. You see that Grenadier panel. That could be pulled out. I expect everything looks like it's hex bolted in or Torx bolted in. So this Grenadier panel looks like extra space that you could add stuff in. Now you see here, so it's got differential locks. That's front axle and rear axle. The center differential lock is a manual shift on the lever. So and then you see it's got an off-road mode and a waiting mode. I'm not sure what the waiting mode does. Anyway, notice right there, you've got the width of 84 inches. That's interesting because an F-150 is 79.9 inches with the mirrors folded in. And the way it's drawn, it looks like it's wheel to wheel, which I don't, that must be with the mirrors out. Anyway, so you have these kind of switches. This is all the panel that's above your head. Now, when you look at these switches, you can see, let's see, you got interior lights. These are neat. So there's a 10 amp and a 15 amp switch for external things or interior things. So that says interior. So those are wired to the battery, then back inside. These ones are wired to the battery and then to outside, so to under the dash. So there's a 500 amp one. So that one on the left will run a winch. The 25 amps, and these two here are 25 amps. So those are exterior things. So those are things you'd run lights to or different accessories outside the vehicle. I think this is really well done. And these switches are positive switches. So you get an on-off. Looks like there's a battery switch there that can be wired and another 10 amp. So now this is the lower control panel. And when you look at this, you see the top row is basically heater controls and seat heaters. That might be a bit of a waste of space. Those seat heater buttons could have been put on those two rotary knobs just inside and left those outside spaces for other buttons. Anyway, lots of space here for sure, and more room to add in switchgear for anybody that needed it. But there's certainly lots of switchgear opted in. Now this is something that Ford's done. You notice it. The Raptor has the switchgear that you can wire stuff to. It's come out now in the Super Duty stuff, and the Tremor vehicles all have it, and it's optional on other stuff. The new Bronco has it. Now this vehicle is going to be somewhere between a Bronco and a Super Duty. Okay, so they're claiming 2,000 pounds or 2,200 pounds of payload, a metric ton. So that means that this vehicle is going to have heavier duty axles than the Bronco has, which has Dana 44s, which are an 8.8 inch ring gear. So that's a heavy duty quarter ton axle. Ford's F-150 has an 8.8, what they call a Super 8.8, which is stronger than the Dana, and then the optional 9.75, which would be more like a Dana 60. So I'm not sure where these are going to fit in there on the axle side, but it sounds to me like it's going to be, it's probably going to weigh about 6,000 pounds and have axle capacity of just over 8,000 pounds. You know, maybe it's 5,500 pounds and just over 7,500 pounds axle capacity. Anyway, either way, so but you have to consider that this is a vehicle that's going to kind of compete with commercial use for the people that don't want a convertible Bronco or a Jeep Wrangler. They want something heavier duty. And this is, of course, they're going to sell this to militaries, to mining companies, to logging companies, to research companies, to archaeologists, and of course there's going to be a heavy take up on something like this by doctors and and research groups and different things like that. So anyway, just kind of a neat little outlook here as to what the interior is going to look like. I really like this commercial look. Now, when you look at that switchgear, it really doesn't look any different than Ford switchgear or or maybe BMW switchgear. And I think when you look at this stuff, you'll notice that, of course, it has a lot of BMW in it. So the engine is going to be BMW. The transmission is ZF, but it's the same one that BMW uses in their vehicles. And then you notice that the hand lever, the shifter, is a BMW shifter. And then if you're really sharp, you'll notice that the floor pedals are the same as a BMW. So when you look at that, you start to think, okay, so a startup company, where do they sell this product, right? So when you think about that, you look at this stuff and you say, okay, well, so this is supposed to be kind of a British icon type vehicle. I won't say a copy, but this is inspired by the old Defender, and of course, so BMW has never really had that kind of off-road icon vehicle. The X5 was never that. The X3 wasn't that, and but Mercedes has the G-Wagon, and then you have the Ford has the Bronco and Jeep has the Wrangler. And so this, I think, will probably be sold at BMW dealers. And people have to remember that, those that are sharp would remember that the most sought-after Defenders there was a small group of Defenders that were built with BMW inline-six engines and transmissions that were sold in Africa. So, a lot of people think, oh, the best Defender is with a 200 diesel or a 300 diesel. Well, the really most sought after, most durable, most dependable Defenders were those few that were built for Africa with the BMW drivetrains. So now these guys have kind of done that. So they've built this with BMW drivetrains, with BMW parts, with BMW iDrive or whatever it's called, type of software for the computer, for the dash. But then they've kind of added in their own touches, and they've kept the British look. They've kept that iconic, that iconic design, and I think that this is quite possible could be sold at the Mini dealership. The Mini has been struggling lately, and we're looking at, you're looking at a vehicle that kind of has a British, even though it's built in France, right on the border of Germany and a German factory where most of the workers speak German and French. This was gonna be built in England, and the owner of the company is British, and so you can see that maybe this would work really well for BMW to sell in the Mini dealership and service at its mini BMW facilities, and that would give them the off-road credible four-wheel drive vehicle that they've never really had before. Anyway, I think this is going to be a really interesting project to watch come off the ground. So you can see there's that same shifter you'd have in your BMW 3 Series or your X3 or your X5 or whatever else. That's kind of ubiquitous across the board for BMW. And there's the shifter for the transfer case, which they've built in-house. It's going to be very similar to the old transfer case for Land Rovers, which were full-time four-wheel drive with a manual locking center differential and high and low range. Now you can see all this trim gear. Everything looks to be trimmed out quite nicely. There's a holy shit handle there, and the vertical or the horizontal design, very much like a Jeep or any of the predecessors, similar in its way to the Land Rover Defender. And then of course just a standard glove box like any other vehicle. So this is that mix of, nicer than stamped aluminum or whatever crimped steel. You've got modern touches. This is very nicely done. There you see those BMW pedals, hinged at the floor, not a floating type pedal like you'd find on most American vehicles. And this one here that you could see had carpets, but it is available with rubber floors. Now, here in the center of the dash, this is just kind of a cute little design. This has got a compass, pretty much like a digital watch compass, like a Garmin, like the app on a Garmin watch. This is going to give you your direction, but it also gives you, the degrees digitally in the center when the vehicle's on. So that's kind of a nice little touch. And then you see this is the bottom. This is kind of the BMW iDrive system, same set of buttons, very similar. It's probably going to have some functionality or some apps in it that are different than BMW's, but generally it's very much the same. Notice the manual handbrake there, so that'll kind of disqualify it from having something like the Trail Turn Assist like the new Bronco has, which uses the electronic emergency brakes individually on one side or the other of the axle. So you open the differential and click it will automatically click one side and lock one wheel while the other wheel pushes twice as fast on the outside and turns you in. So and when we look here at the interior, it's something I don't know if you've noticed, but they're using Recaro seats. So Recaro are building their interiors for them. So you've got some really well made. That it's going to be quality interior. This is either vinyl or leather and some type of a thick canvas type material. I know there'll probably be a top end version with full leather and the whole bit, but the nice thing that you notice about this is the seating is thin, and so it takes up less space inside, which means there's more space for other things. So that's something that American companies could do better on. I find that a lot of the vehicle seating is too plush, too thick, and balloons out and takes up a lot of interior volume. So Ford seems to be at the top of the American market on that, but there is some room to improve for more interior volume by thinning out some of those seats. So you can see there's some plugs and some switches. I'm going to guess that there's USB stuff there, but those could also be seat heaters for the rear. I haven't heard. I know that there's heated seats in the front. Haven't heard whether there's going to be optional heated seats in the rear yet. So this is something that I thought was interesting. So this L-Track, it's not unique to this vehicle. Other vehicle manufacturers use it. Nissan uses it in the bed of their pickup trucks. But what's unique here is these guys are going to use it on the outside of the vehicle as well. So attachment devices you use inside the vehicle, you'll be able to use on the outside of the vehicle as well. Really neat for military use and stuff as well. But you can see, it'd be kind of cool to be able to attach things on the outside of the vehicle.